Hi, fabulous fourth graders. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of our online math lessons. Today we have two learning targets. Today, our learning targets are that we can represent fractions as decimals, and we can explain what a decimal represents. Okay, you all know that when we look at a number such as 235, each of those digits are parked in a specific place. The place that they are parked in, we know, tells us the value of each digit. For example, that 2, you know, is in the ones, tens, hundreds place. 2 hundreds are in this number. We know that the 3, because it's in the tens place, the value of that 3 is 3 tens, or 30. 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and we know our 5 is parked in the ones place, so its value is 5 ones, or like $5 bills. So 235 really is 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and 5 ones. Today we're looking at what happens if we go over to our next place. In each of these, we know as we get smaller, we are dividing by 10. Like if you had 100 and you divided it by 10, we'd have the tens place. To get from the tens place to the 1, if you think of how many ones are in a $10 bill, so divide by 10, it's 10. We're dividing one more time. We're moving over to one more spot now and adding that to our number system and our number sense. And that first place as we move over is something called the tenths. And how we would write that is like this: 1/10. Okay, that 6 is in the tenths place, our first decimal place in our system. Okay, if we moved over even one more place, okay, it would give us the hundreds place. And we would write it like this: hundredths place. When we think about what the value is of those digits, because I have a 6 parked in my tenths place, the actual value of that 6 is 6 tenths. Hopefully you are noticing a connection between the names of our decimal places. The first place after this decimal point, okay, is the tenths. Any number that's marked there is written over a 10. So a 6 in the tenths really means 6 tenths. Okay, what that would look like, we'll take a look at in a minute. This 4 in the hundreds place looks like this as a decimal, 4 hundredths. Okay, and what we really are doing is we would be taking a dollar, we would divide it into 10, and this first digit tells us how many of those out of the dollar we have. We would have 6 tenths. The next place over is divided by 10 again, which would give us how many we have out of 100. It helps to make a connection a lot of times between a decimal number and our money system. There's a direct relationship there. Okay, let's take a look at that together. Please pretend, fourth graders, I just gave you $235.64. Woo-hoo, you are rich all of a sudden. I would hand you $200 bills. I don't have those at home, to be honest, so I don't have that as an example, but 3 tens. Okay, here's 3 $10 bills, 5 ones, those I would have, but we'll just keep going and pretend. $5 bills. Now, when I move over to the decimal place, that's when I move to my change or my coins in our money system, because a decimal represents less than $1, less than one whole. Anytime you have any numbers to the right of the decimal place, its value is not a whole, less than one whole. Okay, so we're now looking at the 64 cents part of things. Okay, I might represent that like this. When I think of a dollar, and when I know I'm counting by tens, a dime, think for a moment, fourth graders, how many of these dimes do we need to make a dollar? Hopefully you answered 10. Okay, so if we were going to represent the 6/10ths, or 6 out of 10, that really would be 6 dimes. It is 6 out of 10 dimes needed to make a dollar. So 6/10ths, 6/10ths is 6 out of 10 dimes to make a dollar. And here's what they look like. This first place value is like the dimes or the tenths out of a dollar. So 6 in the tenths place is equal to or equivalent to 6/10ths. Okay. Now if we move over to the next place, hundredths. In our money system, what do we need 100 of to equal a dollar? We need 100 pennies to equal a dollar. By parking a 4 in the hundredths place, it means we have 4 pennies, or 4 out of 100. Remember, fractions are always, the numerator is how many parts out of the whole. Okay, how many parts are needed to make a dollar? It's 100. If you have 4 out of 100, you have 4 pennies. Okay, so just like we did with our whole number, we said what place each digit's in, and then we said the value. So the 6 is in the tenths place, and I'm saying it like a THS at the end. If we were in the classroom, I would make you practice this like you are a snake. Tenths. Okay, a 6 is in the tenths place, but what is its value? Well, let's look. A 6 in the tenths place, its value really is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. 60 out of how many pennies in a full dollar? 60 out of 100. So it's like saying whatever you park in the tenths place, to tell its value or what it's worth, you really multiply that digit by 10. Because this is telling you how many dimes do you have, and each dime is worth 10. So this digit is a 6 times 10. That really stands for 60 hundredths. 6/10ths is the same as 60 hundredths. And now you know why you learned equivalent fractions before you learned this. Because 6/10ths is the same as 60 hundredths. We just multiplied both by 10. The next thing you need to know is the name of the next place value over. The name or the place is the hundredths. Since we have a 4 in the hundredths place, okay, pennies, we need 100 of them to equal a whole. So 4 hundredths is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hundredths. Technically, then we could add these up, couldn't we? We have 2 of the same denominators. 60 hundredths plus 4 hundredths is 64 out of 100, which is why when you go to the store and they say that'll be 64 cents, please, you're paying 64 out of a dollar, right? 64 hundredths. They don't say, please pay me 64 hundredths. It just sounds awkward. But really what they're asking for is, if it's 64 cents for a piece of gum, they're saying you owe them 6/10 and 4 hundredths, which is 64 hundredths total. Let's look at some more examples. A lot of times when we are working with decimals, they'll give you a fraction and ask you to write it as a decimal. Okay. We just learned we have our place values that we are so familiar with. We have the hundreds, we have the tens place, and we have the ones. We learned now that if we divide by 10 one more time, we have something called the tenths, and we name it as tenths. Okay. And then we also have the hundredths. As a fraction, that is 1/100th. And when we write it as, I'm running out of space, I'm sorry, awesome fourth graders, hundredths. Both of those have a THS at the end. I couldn't squeeze because of my fat marker, but that's what we name this place. Okay. So if they were to say to us, all right, fourth graders, you're getting good at this. Please write 5/10 as a decimal. They didn't say anything about a whole number, so we would say we have no wholes or no whole numbers. 5/10 means we are parking the digit 5 in the tenths place. So a 5/10 written as a decimal is 5 parked in the tenths place. We would read this as 0 and, we say and when we see the decimal, 0 and 5/10, because that is the place that 5 is parked in. To go back to our money system, that really means 5/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you think about that, that really is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cents out of a dollar, which makes sense because 5 times 10, since it's in the tens place, is 50. Let's look at another example. Sometimes they will give us a whole number, like a new pack of markers costs $4.21. Okay. We could write that as a decimal. Oh dear me. We could go backwards. Let's write this decimal as a fraction. Okay, $4.21 for a pack of markers. That would look like this, $4. Now if you look, we're going out 2 places into our decimal system. Look back up here. That would mean that I have a 2 and a 1. So I would read this as 21, and you always read the last place that your digits parked in, 21 hundredths. So this is $4.21 hundredths. Again, let's go the other direction. We have a fraction, 3/4 hundredths. We can go backwards. You can start with a decimal to get to a fraction, or start with a fraction to get to a decimal. When I read this to you all, it's 3/4 hundredths. So as a decimal, that 3 is a whole number, so I know it's in my ones place. 3 whole dollars. And now this 4 is in what place? Is it in the tenths? No, we do not have any tenths. but that 4 is in the hundredths place. I have 4 hundredths. I need to show that I have no tenths here. 3 and no tenths and 4 hundredths. Okay. For an assignment today, I'm going to ask you to give a few of these types of problems a try. This is brand new. Okay. It is a challenging learning target. Please have a good attitude and give it your best shot. If you possibly can, please come to our 1:30 or 2 o'clock math groups. I promise to explain this more, to answer your questions, and to help you. If you can't make it to math groups, I'd be so happy to sign up to do a Zoom with you, just one-to-one, and help you to learn about decimals. Okay? In a couple of days, you will be a decimal master. Okay? Thank you for being great listeners. Thank you for working hard at home. I miss you all and send love and hugs. See you soon.